Well, welcome to the second part of this Red One camera tutorial. In the first part, we showed you how to assemble the camera. So we have it completely put together right now. So we're ready to go inside the menu system and set it for exposure. Now, there are three different buttons that we're going to deal with on the camera. The first is going to be with the sensor button. We'll also take a look at the video button. And we'll also take a look into the system menu as well. Now, in our sensor button, we're going to be able to activate the menu in order to set exposure on it. So this will include the ISO, the shutter speed, and the color temperature or white balance. So if I hit the sensor button, notice we have a little menu that will pop up right on the bottom of our LCD screen. Now in those menu headings, we can toggle over to them and set each individual setting by utilizing this little toggle switch right here on the back of the camera. With the toggle switch, it will toggle down, it will toggle side to side. Also, it will have the functionality where we can turn the knob, and at each little click, there will be some adjustment that we will make once we're inside one of these menu designations. So, let me toggle over to sensitivity and set the ISO setting. If I toggle down in ISO, I see an ISO rating. I can toggle down and set the ISO by turning the knob. We start off at ISO 100, and as I turn the knob to the right, you can see that it clicks in smaller increments. And as the higher I go up with the ISO setting, that obviously changes the light sensitivity of the camera. Now, we have a max ISO rating of 2000 on the Red One. So let me just back it down here temporarily down into a range, let's say about 400. Once we're done setting that temperature setting, we can just simply either toggle up on the switch. That will take us back to that previous menu, and now we can go to another setting and make an adjustment. So let me head over to color temperature now. Notice it gets highlighted as I toggle over. I can toggle down, and I have several different settings that I can choose from at this point. We have an auto white balance setting, one for tungsten lighting, one for daylight, and then a manual white balance setting. Here in auto white balance, if I simply toggle down, what the camera does, it will read and sense the light source that we're in, and it will give you a color temperature rating here on the LCD. If I toggle over to the tungsten setting and toggle down, it will automatically set it to 3200 Kelvin, which is pretty typical for a studio type of setup. If I toggle over to daylight and then toggle down, it will give us a preset of 5600 Kelvin, which is normally what we'd use for outside shooting. Now if I toggle over to the right to manual white balance and then toggle down, I can now manually set the color temperature in 100-degree increments. So when I turn the knob, each degree goes up by 100 points. As you can see, the changes being made on the LCD. This way you can customize your color temperature on the camera. So let me toggle back up, get to the main menu, toggle back up, and those settings are now in place with the ISO and the color temperature. Now let's say I want to change the shutter speed. I will again hit the sensor button. I can toggle over to shutter, toggle down where it says speed, and now by me again turning the knob, and it has a little click movement to it, you can see that each click will change the shutter speed on the camera. Shutter speed in this case will continue to rise as we continue to click through that knob, and it will max out at 1/2000th of a second. Let me go back the other way where now I'm turning that knob to the left. And again, you can see the increments changing with each click that I make with that toggle knob. I'll keep toggling to the left and move my shutter speed at this point at 1/30th of a second. So just by simply going into the sensor button, which takes us into the sensor menu, we've been able to change the ISO setting, the shutter speed, and the color temperature, which are the main settings you're going to need to help set your exposure for the camera. Now we can get a little bit more detailed with some of the customized settings for the camera in terms of the saturation levels, RGB levels, that will essentially be tailored to what you as a cinematographer will do with this camera. We're not going to get too deep into those. We just want to show you some of the basics of the exposure of what you will set with a camera. We also can set the frames per second, but we're going to go into a different menu now. If I go over to the System menu and press that, toggle down where it says Project. Now I'm going to toggle over to Configure. I toggle down. I toggle over to Time Base. I click that. And now again, as I turn the knob, I can change my frames per second on the camera. I toggle up, and you can see the changes that I made. In this case, I've gone to 24 frames per second. So, the primarily thing that you will use in making changes within the menu are going to be our toggle switch and each of these buttons that will take us and lead us into several different menus within the camera. So that's a look at the resolution. Now let's take a look at what we're going to do when we want to change or activate media in our next tutorial.